bash the other New York quarterback who shall not be named today, I guess, because he's on his bye week and who knows what he's doing. The other New York quarterback that is now no longer a New York quarterback. His name is Daniel Jones, and he just got released today by the New York Giants. Basically released him today because of some injury stuff in his contract. They saved money, whatever. So Daniel Jones now no longer a New York Giant. So let this be the Daniel Jones New York Giants saga. Let this be a very cautionary tale to NFL GMs everywhere. So this is an individual that was picked way higher than he should have been in the 2019 draft out of Duke. The Giants were desperate, needed a quarterback. Eli Manning was going into the final year of his career. They felt like they could get a guy now and develop him behind Eli, and he'd be their guy. That didn't pan out because Daniel Jones, to me, was clearly in that draft a mid to late second-round talent at best. So he plays his rookie year, doesn't pan out. Year 2 isn't much better. Year 3 is just terrible. And by then, after year 3, I always have a rule. If you're not sure if your quarterback is your franchise guy by year 3, move on. Draft another one. Well, the Giants said, we're going to stick with him because we got Brian Daboll coming in. Brian Daboll, who is the offensive coordinator with the Buffalo Bills, really kind of helped Josh Allen ascend. And now, ever since, Josh Allen has still remained great because he's a great player. But Brian Daboll helped him in that progression from his second year on. And so like, hey, if they can do that with Josh Allen, hey, maybe he could do it with Daniel Jones. Obviously does not have quite the physical capabilities of one Josh Allen. But nonetheless, it's not a crazy idea because the Giants make the playoffs in 2022. Not only do they make the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen, for Daniel Jones in a contract year, in a year where they actually declined his fifth-year player option or fifth-year team option, they win a playoff game in the year they make the playoffs over the favored Minnesota Vikings. Now they go on, they get blown out by Philadelphia. It's a Philadelphia team that goes on to make the Super Bowl, but it's like, hey, the Giants are back. I remember saying on my show after they beat the Vikings, I'm like, hey, the New York Giants is a pristine franchise in the league, might be back. Well, they ended that because they gave Daniel Jones essentially Dak Prescott's contract that offseason and franchise tagged Saquon Barkley when obviously it should have been the other way around. The thing about the Daniel Jones deal that never made sense to me, because I was never high on Daniel Jones at any point in his career ever. But we've seen guys, I think we're seeing it right now in Minnesota with Sam Darnold, who have been bums throughout their entire career and then have one big-time breakout year. Okay. We'll show you the numbers. Thank you for putting this graphic together, Alfred. Shout out to you. This is Daniel Jones in his so-called breakout year that convinced the Giants he should make $40 million a year. This is what he did in 2022. You tell me if that is mind-blowing. 15 touchdowns, 5 picks. Completion percentage is pretty good. 67.2. It's actually really good. But 3,200 passing yards, that's not good at all. A pass ring of 92, a record of 9-6-1. It's a good record, gets you to the playoffs, and we all know, of course, that was mostly led by Saquon Barkley and the brilliance of one Brian Daboll. Nothing special there popping out. And I hate the franchise tag, despise it. But Daniel Jones is the prime candidate for the franchise tag. And since he got paid, folks, Daniel Jones won 3 games. Now, he got hurt early on in 2023, comes back this year, isn't that much better. Now, call me crazy. I don't think Brian Daboll forgot how to coach. As a matter of fact, I don't think the Giants, let me rephrase this. Outside of the loss of Saquon Barkley, the best player on their team, or at least second best player on their team, potentially because of their defensive line, I don't think the Giants got that much worse over the ensuing 2 years. I can make a strong case. The numbers overwhelmingly support this. Giants might have one of the 3 or 4 best defensive lines in football. Dexter Lawrence, among others. They're amazing up front on the defensive side of the ball. They've got guys who could get, they added, what's my man's name at LSU? Kid at LSU, I'm forgetting his name now. Drafted the wide receiver at LSU. Okay, they've got other pieces. They won't use Jalen Hyatt. Not sure why. Go Vols, Jalen Hyatt. Good deep threat. They need to use him more. They're fine. They can move the ball. Brian Daboll's a smart coach. They had their moments last year with Tyrod Taylor, with Tommy DeVito, who's now the quarterback now as the starter because the Giants are probably aiming to tank. Malik Neighbors, that's who I was thinking about. Malik Neighbors. Okay, they're fine. They're not the Patriots. They're not the Cowboys. Without CeeDee Lamb, folks, Cowboys receiving cores, even with him. And I love CeeDee Lamb, but they're yikes. The pieces were there. But Daniel Jones just isn't very good. It's pretty simple. What the Giants did in drafting Daniel Jones as high as they did back in 2019, and in paying Daniel Jones, to me, which was far more egregious, what they did in the 2023 offseason, what the Giants did, I think, in their mind, is say, hey, the quarterback position it's disproportionate to every other position in football in terms of its value and its importance. People are like, oh, why does a quarterback win MVP every year? Because it's way more valuable. Listen, you could have individual players like a Saquon Barkley this year, a Christian McCaffrey last year, TJ Watt in the past, right? Like Myles Garrett, guys like that who are individually, Tyreek Hill, individually valuable. That doesn't mean their position is. Just by virtue of certain guys like Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, guys like that, being quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, it's going to they're in their MVP case. That's just how the position works. That's how the game works. The Giants understood that, but they overvalued the player. They didn't overvalue the value of the position. Position's always going to be valuable. It gets more so by the day. They just overvalued the guy at the position. That's the mistake the Giants made. And in doing so, I think it's like a $20 million, they're going to pay like $20 million in dead money, so it's going to hurt them cap-wise moving forward. Listen, it was the right move. I'm pulling for Daniel Jones in his next stop. Daniel Jones will be a good backup somewhere. He really will. Like, that's not a shot. Daniel Jones is a valuable backup. He can move. He's relatively accurate. Terrible decision maker, but maybe if he ends up, I mean, I heard it suggested today, like the Los Angeles Rams is like quarterback rehabilitation school. We saw what they did for Baker Mayfield. Jimmy Garoppolo's the backup there now. If Daniel Jones is Stafford's backup next year, should Stafford decide to come back, which I think he will, that's a good spot for Daniel Jones. It works. Maybe Carson Wentz. By the way, Carson Wentz was the Rams' backup, and now he's Mahomes' backup, and it's a good spot for him. So there'll be places, there'll be good coaches, good organizations that'll take Daniel Jones as their backup. So it's not like his career's over by any stretch of the imagination. But let this be a warning to teams moving forward. You can be desperate to get your guy at that position because, oh my goodness, it's so important to get that guy at that position. But understand the player that you're talking about. Don't let that overshadow how valuable that the position is. And again, just because a player who's otherwise terrible, which Daniel Jones has been, with the exception of 2022, and has put up the numbers one more time, a good year. I mean, I even hesitate just to say that. I mean, 15 touchdowns, 5 picks. It's a good TD to interception ratio. It's not eye-popping statistics, 3,200 yards in 16 games. I'm not like, going crazy over this. 92 passer rating. It's fine. It's not amazing. Far from it. Don't overvalue the player at the most important position. That would be the lessons for GMs moving forward in the NFL. It's a mistake the Giants made. They've certainly come to regret it. And, had to move on from Daniel Jones. There's no question about it. And, I just think it's... Listen, I wasn't a fan of the pick when it happened. I didn't have a show back then. I was months away from starting Carving Up Live. But I didn't think he was a great player at Duke. I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess maybe just because he looks like Eli Manning a little bit in the face and because his coach, David Cutcliffe, by the way, David Cutcliffe was Peyton Manning's offensive coordinator at Tennessee, go Vols, and he's Eli Manning's head coach at Ole Miss, then went on to be the Duke head coach, with Daniel Jones. I guess the Manning connection there helped. I don't know. It was not a smart pick by any stretch of the imagination whatsoever. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.